because we are remote, what we're going to do, Randall, um, well, me and your new senior and junior warden are going to each present a little piece, and then we'll open it up to question and answers. I'll present, and we'll have some conversation time, question answer, and then I'll pass it to your new wardens. And so this is my opportunity to introduce you to your new wardens. And that is going to be Randall Robinson. This is as of yesterday, or Friday evening at the vestry retreat. Randall Robinson will be your senior warden for this year, 2026, and Glenda Swan will be your junior warden for 2026. So congratulations and blessings to them as they take on this new role. Um, and so uh, we will do this presentation and invite you to remain on mute during that time, just because it makes it easier for everyone to hear. And and then we can do some question and answer in the chat maybe, and we can respond. If you At that point, we might be able to do a little more conversation. Not easy with so many folks on. There's about 23 folks on, so we'll do the best we can and go from there. But the purpose of this forum is really to just begin a conversation about how do we prepare as a congregation to welcome a new rector. This is a holy moment in the time of a congregation. It's a threshold, really, where kind of endings and beginnings are held together. It's a kind of a liminal space where there's a lot of movement and a lot of change. And some of the work that we've done in the interim period has begun to prepare us for that process. Father Robert is working to prepare us for that process spiritually, and a renewal of our baptismal vows that we will do around the time in Easter time. And that is a looking forward to this new relationship as well, grounded in our vows together of what form us as a people, grounded in our relationship with Christ as we begin anew. So as we start this time, we're going to talk a little bit more about the kind of nuts and bolts of welcoming a new rector and how do we prepare our minds and our hearts, our attitudes, our kind of orientation to this moment, to make it the best that it can be. Um, so as we begin, I want to invite us to hear a word from Isaiah chapter 43, verses 19 through 20. I am about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. The wild animals will honor me, the jackals and the ostriches, for I give water in the wilderness, rivers in the desert, to give drink to my chosen people, the people whom I formed for myself, so that they might declare my praise. I think this piece from Isaiah, these verses, help to orient us a little bit to this moment. It's not that, I mean, to some extent, transition does feel a bit like a wilderness, doesn't it? Like a desert. There's good things happening. There's beauty in the desert. There's beauty in the wilderness, but it's disorienting a bit. It doesn't feel like home. And transitions aren't home. They are a place between homes, between places where we dwell for a period of time. And I think one of the things that I remember that comes to me and that gives me a great deal of solace about the arc of our story as the people of God is that the wilderness is often a place where God meets God's people. Um, yes, on mountaintops, but even more. in the desert and in the wilderness more frequently in our scriptures. So we have been in that time between places. And and this passage from Isaiah reminds us that God, even when the circumstances around us feel like desert, feel like wilderness, and certainly our experience in the larger world feels that way at this moment, that even in the midst of all of those circumstances around us, God is always poised, ready to do a new thing. God is always creating and recreating. So these words from Scripture are never old. They are always new, always a new invitation to perceive the newness that God is creating in us, among us, the future that God um, calls us forth into, and these words are a reassurance that um, we're not waiting to see if God shows up with this new person or if this person is going to bring us into new glories in relationship to God. God is already here. God has been working among you, is working among you, will be working among you. And our task is to pay attention to that and to join with God in that newness that God is creating. So today we're going to talk a little bit about um, how do we do that? And and I will say that I want to offer up a goal for thinking about this is a question, how do we become the healthiest partners in ministry that we can be, that St. Paul's can be as we begin a relationship with a new rector? Which hopefully by the end of February, we will have a name and a face to connect with that idea of a new rector. So, um, some questions for us to be pondering today. What does healthy, if we want to be the healthiest partners we can be in ministry, what does healthy look like? What does healthy look like? So, I wanted to share a little bit about, I think, what we bring. We're going to talk about three different topics. What do we bring? What do you bring as a congregation into this new relationship? Um, and what are the best practices really for the first probably year of your life together? And I want to say a little bit about things, pitfalls, things, trapdoors, and things that you want to try to avoid. A lot of this wisdom comes from the wisdom of interim ministers and people who have served congregations in the midst of change and transition for decades and decades and generations. So I've tried to distill that down and try to present just a few things for us to be thinking about. So first of all, what do we bring into this relationship and into this moment as a congregation? What I hope that you will bring, partly from the search committee, I'm never good at doing my slides. There we go. What I hope that we will bring partly from the search committee, from the search process leading into the committee's work, is that we've done some work of grieving and celebrating the gifts of your last chapters as a parish. Remember those workshops that you all did leading into the search? Imagining, prioritizing to some extent, what are the things we want to carry with us into our next chapter from what we have been together. So you've done some of that work, and some of the work to come is for us to remember as we go into the next phase that we will carry both gifts and wounds, right? There's no congregation, no group of people that's been of three or more that's been together for any period of time that hasn't both hopefully loved each other well, but also hurt each other at times. We've disappointed each other. So I think it helps to be aware of our own history and our own wounds as well as our own gifts. And that remember that those who served us before were whole people, which means they were imperfect people, just as we are. And they had gifts to bring, and they brought them. And together, beautiful things happened. But there are wounds. There were failures, of course. There were things that were missed. There were disappointments. And so we hold those things, but invite you to hold them in awareness, and not so much unconsciously, where we're not we can't see them when they begin to have their influence on us. Um, Healthy congregations and individuals, this is really important. We distinguish between how it was done and what we actually need now. So I think in transitions, it's very natural. When I was first here at St. Paul's, I heard repeatedly, almost daily, just reflection about how things were done. This is how we do it, or this is how things have been done. This is how George did it. This is how Javier's done it. Um, of course, that's natural, but it's important to distinguish in a transition between how we've always done it and what we actually need to continue to do. Because as you've seen, just by having new folks in leadership, things are different, new personalities, new approaches to ministry. And it helps to be fluid and to be able to be self-aware of how we are holding on to how it was always done. Change can be uncomfortable. Another thing that's important, what we bring into our relationship, hopefully, as you enter a new relationship with this new rector, is some clarity about expectations. Um, I think I was reflecting with Father Robert about this a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about how in these moments, and entering into a new relationship with congregation, you know that people are bringing all kinds of hopes and wishes, and that most of what their hopes and wishes are, and sometimes our own coming into this, is that we think of all the wonderful things that we have enjoyed in ministry and in our life together, and we think, oh, well, if this is going to be a good relationship, a good new rector, a good new season, it will be more of all the good things and less of any of the challenges. I mean, we all bring that kind of optimism and hope into every relationship. And I think the important thing to recognize, though, is that there will be change, and our expectations um, are just that. Uh, and they need to be held loosely, because also no rector can be everything to everyone. There are a lot of different skills and um, um, abilities, gifts that any rector will bring, but there will be things that are not their strong suit, and there will be rearrangements um, as you come into this new chapter. Uh, those things that were perhaps George's strengths will not be the same things that are the new rector's strengths. And they may have some similarities, but they most certainly will have differences. And so preparing oneself um, to recognize that there will be shifts in leadership too. So we can't expect things to go on exactly as they have been, um, because new arrangements of leadership will need to arise to meet those things which this rector, perhaps it's not their strong suit. New leadership will need to emerge from the congregation to fulfill the need for the congregation. So that's what I mean by the rearrangement of leadership. Another thing to be aware of as we come into the relationship is, what are our genuine priorities versus nostalgic preferences, right? Um, good thing to be aware of. Um, and what we can bring to the new relationship with a new rector is some commitments to direct and positive communication. As you begin to discern and discover all the things that are different and things that maybe challenge you, uh, a commitment to avoid triangulation. That is, complaining to others instead of addressing the concern directly with whoever we might be concerned, about their behavior or their priorities. Triangulation undermines trust. We need to go directly to the folks who we have some conflict with, and learn some skills around direct communication. If there are significant concerns, the vestry is the appropriate channel for those. Your wardens are there to hear your concerns and to raise those with the rector if there is, if you've already done the conversation with them and did not feel that there was change that you were hoping to see. The vestry is the appropriate channel for that. Um, the most important thing, though, I think, as you begin, is to assume good intent. Assume that this was told to me when I was doing premarital preparation. Assume good intent from your partner. Do not presume that they have malicious intent, especially in the first year. If you don't understand and you're confused by what they're doing, assume good intent and be curious and ask. So this is one to kind of hang on to. If something bothers you, ask yourself, have I talked to the person directly? All right. Um, just some best practices for the first year. Bringing ourselves into this with some self-awareness, with some recognition that we have expectations and maybe what those are, and that we need to hold those loosely. A commitment to direct communication, so we're not whispering in the parking lot or in the bathrooms, but having forthright conversation about who we are and what we're doing and where you're going. Some best practices as you bring those things into relationship. Just to recognize that the honeymoon period, it's real. Um, you hopefully will give the new rector lots of grace, and there will be enthusiasm because you'll see the gifts that your new rector brings. You'll see good fruit and things beginning to happen in the midst of that partnership and relationship that you have together, and that enthusiasm is great. But you will just remember that it's incomplete. You do not know the whole person. You don't know all of what you will experience together. And so it also can be disappointing when you start to feel that when there are disappointments. It doesn't mean it was a wrong choice. It means you're having a human relationship. Um, and recognizing really that conflict isn't failure. Conflict is a part of authentic relationship. Differences. If you've been married or been part of a family in any way, I hope you know that this is real and that this doesn't mean failure. It just is the work of being human together, part of that work. Um, Another important thing to recognize is that the honeymoon period often does last about a year or so, and in that during that time, hopefully the rector will really just be trying to get to know you well. And you should expect some changes, like some things that he or she may want to bring into this relationship with you. That's going to begin to really happen around 6 to 12 months to 18 months. That's when they will begin to respond to knowing you and discerning what God is doing in your midst, and try to invite you into truly new ground. Um, in the midst of this time, we want to try to give room for the rector, the incoming rector, to learn. They don't know anything about your culture, very little, I should say, about your culture when they really land on the ground. They've only met about 20 people in the parish by the time they land. And so there's so much to learn. One good rule of thumb is to resist over explaining and telling them everything about how everything works. It's overwhelming, but also to avoid warning them about certain people or shaping their perception um, of how the parish works or who they should be in relationship with, how. Let them form their own relationships. Some other best practices, try to protect the time and the boundaries of your new rector. It's a lot like drinking from a fire hose. Your first year to 18 months in the parish. There's so much to learn. It's kind of information and stimulation overload. And new rectors often overfunction from eagerness. So encourage them to, um, that Rome wasn't built in a day, right? We're not going to um, we're going to take time to get to know one another and for him or her to get to know the parish before we set off on great new adventures together. Um, the new rector will have lots and lots of people to meet, and it is unlikely that they will be able to um, go into deep relationship with anyone immediately. It's going to be a long period of time of growing in relationships. So be clear about not expecting their availability in an unsustainable way. And try to model healthy boundaries ourselves. Don't overwork. Don't try to do more than the parish needs to slow down often when you're beginning a new relationship, and may need to think, let's not do that this year, so that we have time really just to focus on building our relationship. Um, Other best practices. Try to stay engaged and not be engaged and don't be passive. Um, I love this phrase. Let's see what they do as an attitude, like sitting back and watching with an attitude of I'm going to make a judgment about this person is really abandoning the relationship. It's not entering the relationship, but it's waiting to see and testing. If they please you, then you'll step into the relationship. That's really abandoning the relationship. Um, Rectors, clergy leadership, it's a unique relationship. You don't really get to date. The search committee and the vestry get to date before you enter into the relationship. But the congregation doesn't really have that opportunity. And what you are doing is trusting that you are beginning a relationship that it's like an arranged marriage, and you can't really test that, right? You have to enter into it with trust that those who have made that match see something possible for you together, and trusting that that will show itself, that it will be revealed why God has called this person and why your search committee and vestry have discerned that this person is the person to lead you in this next season of your life. So rather than waiting, we'll see if we'll stay around. If this is a good rector or not, is really abandoning the relationship before it can begin. Um, and that also means continuing your ministries without waiting. Invest, be a part of the community. Don't hold off, because God is doing a new thing, and we have to trust that that is happening and will happen, and it will show itself. We just need to relax and be a part of it. And then again, offer your gifts without conditions. Be a part of it without setting litmus tests on your rector, especially in the first 12 to 18 months. Give it time. All right. Some common pitfalls to avoid as you begin this new relationship. Um, Comparing, doing constant comparisons. Our last rector always did X, Y, or Z. It's not that those things were bad, or that even doing the comparison somewhat internally isn't such a bad thing to do. You're noticing differences. We can't help but do that. We notice differences. But especially when we speak that aloud to the rector, even if it's good comparisons. You're doing such a great job. Our last rector, blah, blah, did not do, never did this. And we love it that you're doing this. Even when it's positive, um, it creates a kind of atmosphere of competition. And competition is not what the gospel is about. Um, and uh, I think when we see those things arise within us where we're doing those comparisons, um, it's it's just something to be aware of and to avoid, especially to avoid speaking those things out loud. Watch, wait, and see what God is doing in this relationship. Um, Very important, very important. All right. Also very important, testing loyalty by asking them to take sides in old conflicts. There are conflicts in every congregation that kind of linger. I'll say one. I'll name one. I don't think it's a huge conflict, but there are differences of opinion um, about what is the purpose and role, for example, what should be done with the Curry House, the property that we have that's adjacent to the parking lot. What's what's the best way to use that property? You've had differences of opinion and priority and sense of calling on about that space and about the land around it for, since you purchased the property. Um, I think it's important for everyone to recognize that if you make that a loyalty test, well, let's see what the rector thinks about this, and if they think that we should sell it, well, then I'm out of here, or that that's a wrong decision, or they think we should keep it. Well, that's a wrong decision. We've missed the opportunity that we have to make those items a loyalty test is to, again, burden the relationship in a way from the start that is really unfair. And ask yourself, would you do that in your family, in your own family, if you made that kind of ultimatum? How well would your family hold together with those kinds of ultimatums? So take care not to draw them into old conflicts, but to open your hearts and minds to what wisdom, um, what discernment will they come to? What will they come to in their discernment with you about that space and its future? Um, Again, avoiding the rush to premature judgment. Give some space, some time before you decide whether this is working or not. And that means time to fumble around, to time for the rector to miss the mark a couple of times, and then to course correct. Time um, to learn more of the nuances of this person's personality and their vision and your relationship together. If you decide within 3 months, you really have not given it a chance. Um, we spoke of this before a little bit, withholding engagement until they earn your participation. That is an unhealthy way to approach the relationship. Engage fully, participate fully. The person that comes as your new rector is not all that this parish is. Um, you are already a member of this parish. Their leadership should not necessarily decide one way or another your participation in the parish. It is your home. Earn, your participation. They should have already earned it just by becoming part of the parish. And lastly, there's a temptation often, especially in staff and in core leadership in a church, to overfunction with a new rector and to try to make sure that they can be successful and to hover to try to engineer success for them but just remember that you're bringing your own perspective to that. And the best thing to do is to sit back and to watch their leadership emerge. They will, you and they together will discern over time a successful way to working together. And very last thing is to just recognize that the welcoming of a new rector really is about hospitality. Um, it is about recognizing that this person is a stranger, but is most likely an angel that God has sent to you to bring a word, to bring a vision, to bring dis tools and skills of discernment so that together you can see what God is doing in your midst. And so this is where I get to turn it over in a moment to our wardens to talk a little bit about how do we exercise that ministry of hospitality in the first few months, especially, and how the vestry is beginning to organize that process. But before I make that transition, I want to invite you to do some reflection on a couple of things um, as we move into these next few months. Think about what's one thing you hope to offer during this new chapter in your common life at St. Paul's. What's one thing you hope to offer and one thing you hope to receive? And then as you think about and spend some time being self-aware of your own hopes for this next season, the next step, I think, is to ask yourself, are those hopes and expectations, how are they aligned with the reconciling ministry of Christ, with our baptismal covenant, with how we share our life together and the flourishing of the whole community and the world beyond that we serve? That's an invitation to remember that our own hopes are our own, but we live in community with others. And they bring their hopes and dreams and visions, and that together, uh, God is making something new from all of that together. Our hopes are not primary, our individual hopes. There is a larger hope which we share. All right. Um, I had said that I would uh, open it up to questions, answers, any comments you want to make, things that came up in that presentation that you want to argue with.